if you were going to focus completely on just what the numbers say, you're missing the big picture.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook, presented by Details Interactive. Here, you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 10, and today's guest is Doug Zarkin. Doug is the Chief Marketing Officer at Pearle Vision Centers. Before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Brandstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@hippodirect.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the Marketing Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and today's guest is Doug Zarkin. Doug is the Chief Marketing Officer for Pearle Vision. Welcome, Doug, to the show.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Looking forward to hearing all about your history and your background and what you've been doing at Pearle Vision. But before we get into that background, we've got an unprecedented crisis going on right now. It's impacting all of us a little bit differently in different parts of the country, but certainly impacting all of the retailers, even online retailers as well. Doug, can you give us a quick view of what you're seeing in your business so far?
Sure. I think, first of all, for you and for everybody who's listening, I hope everybody is staying healthy and safe. I think for retailers, it's a opportunity to just be completely transparent with themselves. Marketers in particular don't like to say, I don't know, or I can't figure it out. I think we're in a situation right now as a industry, not just optical retail, but retail in general, where we're all figuring it out on the fly. And that really requires us to have a very good sense of not only what's happening at the national, state, and local level, but also what's happening in the communities in which we own, which our locations are based in. You've got to be able to temperature check. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. If you have a location, like we have locations in rural parts of the country, where there may be 30,000 people in a city, and they are taking a little bit of a different approach to Corona than you would be taking in Manhattan or Philadelphia. So I think the one thing that we are doing right now is we are leading by listening to state and national and local officials, but in our case, really listening to our consumers and to our licensed owners. And where necessary, our locations are closing. Where possible, our locations are staying open, because if you're a -4 and you can't see and you break your glasses, well, I would qualify us as a critical healthcare need. You can't drive, you can't go for a run without bumping into a tree. Glasses are something that you need. It's the most important sense that a person has, arguably. So we've got to be very sensitive to the fact that it's not about selling Ray-Bans right now. It's really about caring for the people behind the eyes. And that's really at the heart of what we do at Pearle. And we're really taking that approach with how we're proceeding each and every day.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, and good health to you and your family and all the folks that work in your company. I'm sure you'll do what's necessary to keep everybody informed and healthy. So let's jump back. We like to start most of these shows with a background of the guest. So maybe give us a quick overview of where you went to school, where you grew up, how
Sure.
perhaps that has helped craft your career a bit.
Absolutely. Well, I originally from Boston, but moved to Westchester County at age 4. And so I grew up a Yankee and a Giants fan. Found myself academically spending both my undergraduate and graduate years down in DC, undergrad at GW, and then did my master's degree at American University. Was pursuing originally a JD MBA, and figured out pretty early on that law was not going to be a career choice for me. And so I ended up completing my master's degree in about 13 months, and then moved to Manhattan, moved back to New York to seek fame and fortune, and have been in the New York City area ever since.
Well, you've got the fame, whether you, I don't know, I can't speak
Hardly,
to whether you have the fortune.
hardly infamy, maybe not fame.
So, when you went to school, and part of what we're trying to do on the marketing playbook is give the listener, at the end of the day, 3 or 4 takeaways that they can bring back to their business or they can bring back to their personal life. In those days, going directly to graduate school from undergrad was a thing, right? Not so much anymore, right?
Right, right, right. I mean, for me, it was a pretty easy decision. There were two really big drivers. The first one was financially. I went on partial scholarship, academic scholarship to American, and so being able to say to my parents, who fortunately they were able to support me and put me through college, mom and dad, guess what? I got a ride to go to grad school, was something that, as a gift to be able to give back to my parents, is something that I'm grateful, to be able to do. While it's not, Seinfeld buying your dad a Cadillac, it was a nice surprise for them when I let them know. But I think
Right.
intellectually, the big decision for me was that I didn't feel that intellectually I was mature enough to go into the workforce. Undergrad really teaches you how to memorize. Graduate school really teaches you how to think. And for me, the 13 months I spent getting my MBA was an incredible boot camp and really sort of thinking 101. And eventually, when I graduated, was ready to sort of tackle building my career journey. But grateful for that time period.
Right. And so you moved back to New York, and for a good hunk of your career, maybe if I counted right, roughly 10 years, you spent working at a number of different agencies. Can you talk about that experience? Why agencies? What did you learn? And,
Sure.
and perhaps, looking back, how did those roles prepare you to, move to the brand side?
So dating myself, when I graduated grad school, there was no such thing as LinkedIn. And the way you got interviews was family, friends, and networking. A family friend sat me down and said, "What do you eventually want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, you know, when I'm in my 40s and 50s, what I eventually want to do is run a business and run a brand." And he said to me, "That's great. Get on the train at the end, work your way to the front. So by the time that you move to the client side and you're in a C-level position, you'll not only understand all of the roles and functions, you'll have done them. And more importantly, you'll understand how to motivate those people that are in those roles because you speak that language." And I got to be honest with you, it was such valuable advice, you know, going out into media planning and moving to account management, eventually being tapped to start and lead a division of, at the time, the largest independent agency on the planet in Gray, was phenomenal. And it really prepared me to eventually make the jump to the dark side of the force, which I did when I went client side at Avon.
It's funny, being a brand guy, my whole career, I look at the dark side as moving to the provider side of things.
Oh, that's funny.
So during that time, maybe give us a quick view of the agency side during that period. So you said something about media planner. What were the kinds of roles that you had during that 10-year
Sure.
stay in agencies?
So I started out in media planning, when media planning was fun, when you had, TV, radio, out of home, and print, and eventually went into an account management training program at Saatchi and Saatchi, which was a joint partnership with General Mills, who was Saatchi's largest client, and spent some time in the executive training program, and then eventually was recruited out to go to Gray, where I not only was in their account management program, but I also was doing a significant amount of traveling as the domestic and international liaison for their youth initiative, which at the time was called Gray 18 and Under, and found myself living in markets for weeks at a time. I spent a week in Rio. I spent 2 weeks in Germany, 2 weeks in London, working with Gray's larger clients on portfolio management opportunities and brand positioning opportunities. And it was just an incredible chance to see the world. One of the projects I was most proud of during my agency tenure was writing the brand architecture for the Harry Potter franchise for Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers had secured the rights to the books, but didn't have a consumer product strategy. And we were tapped to outline for all of the departments how to basically bring this brand to life outside of the cinematic aspect. And one of the things that I'll never forget sitting in the room, helping to come up with this insight was when we realized that if we had said to when we said to Warner Brothers, you know what, you need to think of every licensed product that you do that has Harry Potter anything on it as an artifact from the book. It shaped the way they thought about product placement, product expansion, licensing relationships. Don't throw the Harry Potter logo on one of those glasses that you get at the mobile station. Create the goblet, create the candies that you got, recreate the experience. And I got to tell you, even 20 years later, when you look at how they've really blown out the Harry Potter franchise, now that the movies are gone, they really have taken that philosophy to heart still. The Harry Potter world is exactly that. Everything looks like an artifact from the movie. And it's one of the projects that I'll never forget, sort of sitting in the room with some really impressive people and laying sort of the philosophy that I just outlined on them, and kind of them all looking at each other and being like, yep, that's it. And very gratifying.
That's great. It's sounds like a really good experience. So you have all this time on the agency side, and now, as you call it, you decide, well, maybe it's time to make that move to the dark side. And
Yep.
your first dark side role was with Avon. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Avon. I was the founding marketing and creative services lead for their young women's business, which was called Mark. And amazing chance to work with one of the most brilliant leaders in the business, Andrea Jung. And Andrea had a vision to bring in a new generation, not only of buyers, but of, more importantly, of salespeople, of sellers. Didn't know who it was, didn't know what it was, but assembled this group of leaders to figure it out. And spent a year and a half incubating and creating the product line, the branding, the marketing, the website, developing a whole host of really exciting partnerships with everybody from Ford to University of Phoenix. Our training became a college credited training course that people who were signing up to be a Mark representative would take the training and they'd earn 1.5 college credits. We brought e-commerce to the Avon model and really helped really jumpstart the way in which orders were placed. But I think the most important thing we did was bring incrementality. In the first 18 months after launching, I think we delivered about $118 million of complete incrementality to the business, because our product line, our positioning, our messaging was so authentic, but it was so different than your mother's Avon that it just naturally brought in new people. And it opened up an incredible, exciting world for me in terms of experiences and chances to hopefully continue to do great work.
And was it hard, in the sense that, you referred to it as, your mother's Avon lady, or your mother's Avon business. I thought of it as, the Avon lady. And now you were trying to take the halo of the Avon brand, add some other things to it, and now sell differently. So was it hard with, culturally, internally, to get people to think differently? How did that all work out?
So, anytime you're asking somebody to think differently, the journey starts emotional and then it becomes rational. One of the things that, for whatever reason, I decided to do was to approach the leadership about actually going out into the field and selling. And so I spent about 6 weeks traveling across the country as an Avon lady, as an Avon representative, selling lip glosses. And, today I can still sell the shit out of a lip gloss if you need one, Mark. I know how to do it. But what it allowed me to do, candidly, was to understand the vernacular of the existing business model. And so when we approached senior leadership with, here are the things that we wanted to change or evolve, it was always coming from a position of listening in order to lead. I listened and learned the model in order to eventually lead through innovation. And the receptivity to it was really quite good, because everybody recognized that we were about incrementality. It wasn't trying to shove another lip gloss in the 45-year-old representative's bag. It was really trying to bring in a younger, more affluent consumer. And, we were able to assemble a sales force of college girls selling to other college girls on college campuses, and really jumpstart a period of time in their life cycle that was very exciting for that brand.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you had a good run there, and then
Yep.
I guess from there you moved to Victoria's Secret.
Yep.
And, in that business, help me just to gauge timing. Pink was a sub brand at that point, and you kind of came in to help blow it out.
Yeah, but Pink was an incubating brand, and it was more of a product than a brand at that point, and was recruited into the organization to really help dimensionalize it into a fully articulated brand. So translation, moved just beyond the sweatpants that had the pink logo on the tush, and really create a fully articulated product line. Again, Victoria's Secret had a similar problem, which was, their consumer was older. It was, women in their late 20s to 40s, and they saw an opportunity similar to what we had done with Mark to bring in that younger consumer into the world of Victoria's Secret. And so that required a new marketing position, a new product position, and eventually what turned into a standalone retail concept. But I was involved in sort of creating the shop and shop that eventually jump started after I left into fully articulated stores.
When you, as you're thinking through, how to carve, Pink out of it, that younger consumer, not only in their age and in their wants, but they seem to be more fickle than the older, more mature woman. And I don't mean mature as in senior
Sure.
citizen, but was that the case? Did you find that, and did that make it more complicated?
No, what we found was that the consumer, that younger consumer, had the discretionary income, which was fantastic, but was really looking for us to appeal to her intelligently. Look, we were selling, intimate apparel and lip gloss and, sweatpants. So it wasn't a rocket science product initiative, but the way in which we went about talking to her, she was looking to be spoken to in a certain way. And it wasn't necessarily the way in which Victoria's Secret was speaking to their customers. So it was really an interesting marketing challenge because you had to pay homage to the master brand because the brand was VS Pink. But at the same time, you needed to create a different, I don't know, marketing ecosystem, perhaps is the way to refer to it, in order to stimulate somebody to recognize that this brand was for her. And in reality, while we brought in significant incrementality, we found that the existing VS customer liked the product line. And so, one of the challenges was trying to convince her mom not to wear her clothes.
Right.
We started to see, pink sweatpants on a lot of soccer moms. And that was not necessarily a great thing. It was good from a sales perspective, but long-term for the brand, it was troubling and concerning.
Right. Yeah. Couldn't ask somebody that's, worked in that company, what their perspective is on, what's happened, at Victoria's Secret over the last few years. They've obviously gone through a
Yep.
number of senior leadership changes, and now their business was sold. So can you talk a little bit about, you're the outsider now. What do you think happened there?
Just and I won't get specific into people, but there
Sure.
were a few who were just so arrogant and close-minded about what a young woman or what a woman wanted and how she wanted to be spoken to. And for those of you that are female listening to this, they're like, well, what the hell does he know? He's a guy. The thing is that when you are not the target audience, in order to effectively lead, you first have to effectively listen. And, we sat in rooms with some of the existing leadership at the company, and, they would utter phrases like, I don't want girls who are bigger than a size 8 wearing the product.
Mm.
And you'd shake your head and be like, you're such an idiot. The average female is a size 10, and you're telling me that you don't want to make product that somebody who's a size 8 and more can wear. And it was kind of mind boggling at the time. And again, for those of you that have either worked at Limited or know people who worked at Limited, you understand the culture that existed there. It was a very autocratic environment, which eventually was the reason why I left, because I didn't feel like I had the opportunity to make a difference. Even though some of the decisions that I had the chance to make, I thought were good ones and did impact the business positively. The reality is that, when you're a founder-led brand, if that founder isn't necessarily open to innovation or believes that they can teach you everything you need to know about everything, then there really is no room for somebody who wants to make a difference.
The devil's in the details. probably heard that phrase time and time again in your professional life. Projects get started with great intentions, but you no longer have the time to pay attention to the little things that can make the difference between success and failure. At Details Interactive, you can discuss your business with a seasoned direct-to-consumer marketing executive who has helped launch and grow web businesses and integrate multi-channel marketing initiatives. Learn more at detailsinteractive.com. So let's move away from VS. You've worked for a few different wholesale companies.
Yep.
So companies that you're marketing products and you're reliant on other retailers to actually tell your story. How difficult is that to be the marketing guy, know what your marketing approach is, who you're trying to target, but now you're relying on so many other people to be consistent to that message?
It is. It's very challenging. Being a vertical retailer comes with an incredible responsibility in that you control all the points of contact that you have with the eventual end user. When you are a wholesaler, your vision needs to be as concise and as crystal clear as possible to allow as little ambiguity as possible when it moves through the chain of command to the eventual wholesaler that you are selling through. I used to really focus on the things that we can control, control the controllable. And so when it came to brand articulation, product assortment, the way in which we communicated with consumers via social, which we controlled, we wanted to be as focused and as pointed and as consistent as we could with what we were completely controlling. And then there's a little bit of, cross your fingers and hope when it comes to when the product's on the retail floor. And absolutely, Mark, very frustrating when the misses are things that are not your control, but impact your performance for sure.
Right. Okay, so you're the CMO of Pearle Vision. One of the things I think that's interesting is, and I actually did a session with this at a recent conference about the changing role of a CMO. So, but before we get too deeply into Pearle, what's your perspective? Has the role of the CMO changed? Is it going to continue to evolve? And maybe talk a little bit about your scope of responsibility in your current position.
So I absolutely think the role of the CMO has changed. And it's interesting. I'd say 5 years ago, it started to lean incredibly heavy into data. Every job spec you would see on LinkedIn or anybody you would talk to, well, I'm looking for a data-driven CMO. I think now what you're seeing is a little bit move back into balance, a CMO who is both art and science. And the reason for that is that I'm a firm believer that data doesn't make decisions. People make decisions using data. Data is also only as good as the questions that you ask. And so, how do you know what questions to ask? That requires you to understand the art form that is consumer behavior. If you are going to focus completely on just what the numbers say, you're missing the big picture. And oftentimes, the insight that is required to craft the data research, to get to the analysis, to get to the unlock, comes not from what you receive on a spreadsheet. It's from what you see happening within the four walls of your retail experience, or talking to consumers, or doing post-purchase surveys. Getting a real flavor for how your business resonates in the landscape is incredibly valuable.
And so your role today, what reports up to you? How is it carved out?
So my role really is about connecting the brand, putting the brand on the brain of those in the community. Responsible for all of the franchise marketing for all of our corporate and franchise locations throughout North America.
How many locations are there that are corporate, and how many that are franchise?
So we have about 20% of our locations are corporately owned. The rest of them are franchise owners. We call them licensed owners. And the majority of those locations are owned by doctors and opticians. So we really are a community-based business owned by healthcare professionals, very much in keeping with the vision that Dr. Stanley Pearle had in 1961 when he started the business.
And so when a customer walks into, I would imagine when a customer walks into a company owned versus a franchise location, the goal is to have the experience and the branding be consistent regardless.
Yeah, the consumer should have absolutely no idea whether the location is corporately owned or owned by a loan or operator. Our commitment is really about caring for the people behind the eyes, and it doesn't matter the ownership structure. We should be delivering a consistently consistent experience. That is exactly what keeps me up at night, is trying to work to ensure that what we deliver in every neighborhood where we have an eye care center, which is what we call our retail establishments, that we are delivering consistent care from the exam room to the retail floor.
Right. And so when for somebody that is not familiar with Pearl Vision, what can I have done? What can I get done at one of your vision centers?
So to get a comprehensive assessment, not just your vision acuity, but the overall health and wellness of your eye, because a comprehensive eye exam is more than just updating a prescription. It could give you a sense of your overall health and wellness. Diabetes, high blood pressure, these are all things that can be detected from a comprehensive eye exam, or there are indicators that will pop up during a comprehensive eye exam. And then you're going to walk out hopefully with your perfect pair, and that perfect pair may be a prescription pair, and maybe prescription sun. We want to make sure that your vision acuity is spot on, but also that your eyes are healthy.
And when you look at, customer research, I'm sure that's a big part of what your team is doing. What do the customers say that are coming to you? What are the kind of the buzzwords that you hear? If we did that word bubble,
Yeah,
what would
sure.
what do you think that they're saying?
I think what they're saying, or I know what they're saying, because we
Hmm.
we spend a lot of time listening. We have a very extensive reputation management platform through the folks at reputation.com that allow us to essentially do thousands of store visits virtually, because we are looking at the experiences and what's being played back. Personalized, it comes back a lot. Care comes back a lot. Comprehensive, nice, sweet, caring. There is a genuineness to our brand. And that's, I would say 75% of the time, that's what comes back. Like every retailer, 25% of the time, we get it wrong. And, you get rushed, or, pushy, or insincere, and that's really where it becomes about progress, not perfection. We still have opportunities in our business model to perfect the eye care experience, but overall, the research will tell you that we are delivering the highest in quality of care among the retailers that exist.
That's great. Who do you compete with?
So I think for us, when it comes to quality of care, the independent doctor down the street who hangs their shingle, for whatever reason, is perceived to be strongest in care. And it's similar to like your neighborhood pizza joint.
Hmm.
We all have a neighborhood pizza place that we love, but honestly, if you were to go in the storage room and you would see where they got their tomato sauce and the flour for their dough, it's probably the same distribution center that the chain places get down the street. The reality is the perception is that smaller is better. And so we're creating, we're trying to create meaningful connection between the quality of care perception that we deliver and that of what you would get from the independent doctor down the street. On the retail side, obviously there are some big boys out there. Our category, our product line that we sell, we're fortunate to be part of an organization, Luxottica, SLR Luxottica, that sells the best frames on the planet. And so those best frames are carried at a lot of places. And so there are naturally a number of competitors that we face against. But for us, it's really about carving out our distinction, within the landscape. And our success in doing that has allowed us to really grow year after year.
Yeah, it's interesting about your thoughts of, we have a Pearl Vision. I live in New Jersey. We have one on a main road called Route 22, where you
Mhm.
have all the big car dealers and all. And I could see. I know from myself. I look at that and versus the local doctor to go in. I could see how some people would have a different perception of the level of care that they might get. So that is an interesting challenge, I imagine, that you face. When you look at your business from a digital perspective, and I don't mean digital advertising, we'll come to that, but when I go to the website today, I can book an appointment, I believe. Can't do anything else from, or at least I couldn't see. So are you thinking about how you make that a more 360 kind of an experience, or are you guys comfortable and want the folks, to come into the store for absolutely everything that they need to that they couldn't do online?
The success of Pearle Vision is really about personalized service. And in a category where a millimeter of fit in your glasses is the difference between seeing clearly and having a massive headache, we are very committed to focusing on that personal experience, that human experience. Things that go around it, go around it. But the bottom line is that if your eyes are in need of care, do you want to do that care virtually? Or do you want to sit in front of somebody who's a licensed and trained expert who's going to treat you as a person and make sure that the product that you buy is personally fit for you and your needs? We tend to lean into the latter.
So does that mean that, what I see today is pretty much where you're going to be for the foreseeable future from a digital experience?
I think what you see today is at the core of our reason for being and why we continue to be best in class. What you see tomorrow will complement that. And, you know, what that takes form as, don't quite know. Consumers tend to be are very happy right now with what they get when they come to the neighborhood Pearle Vision. And so we're really focusing on optimizing the experience today. Digital for us is a connection point. The goal is to get you to your neighborhood eye care center so that you can experience one of our neighborhood eye care experts and get that personalized care that makes the difference.
Got it. Got it. Let's talk a little bit about, risk and success and failure. So, to me, failing's okay. It shows that we're really trying. Can you speak about a marketing initiative or a program that, you wanted to put in test, you thought it was going to work well, and then it failed?
I think some of the things that we tried to do at Pink with some ambassador programs that we wanted to do to really try and bring to life what the brand stood for. It wasn't that it was a failure in the sense of that it was a bad idea. It was a failure in that, when you were developing a brand that is a sub brand, or some would view it as a derivative brand, I think we underestimated the impact of the master brand, the halo effect that it had. Going to college campuses, going to high school, talking to high school kids about a brand like Pink that had the VS name on it. There was a lot of baggage that went with it. Some of it was excellent baggage. I mean, some of it was a lot of credibility, but there was also some overtones. Talking to a 15-year-old girl when you're projecting an image of supermodel sexy is a little bit of a disconnect. So I think, personally, I underestimated the ability to separate the sub brand from the master brand, at least at that point. I think today it's easier because you have so many more channels that are at your disposal to really create brand differentiation. But back then, your ecosystem, even in the digital world, was still pretty sophomoric. And so, it really required you to kind of go out and do a lot of heavy lifting in order to generate perspective.
hmm When you look at Pearl now from a marketing tactics perspective, and you look at whatever the dollar amount that you put to work for you, what are the major components of that spend today?
What I'll say, and obviously I can't and won't reveal the secret recipe, but what I will say is that we understand that our business is built. We call it the 5 mile battle and the 9 mile war for patients, both on the retail side as well as in the exam lane. We understand that if the average speed limit in the suburbs, which is really where we're based, is about 30 miles an hour, nobody's going to travel more than about 20 minutes to find their neighborhood eye care center. And so we are hyper focused on winning the share of mind at the neighborhood level. We have built significant programs both digitally and terrestrially, to put our brand on the brain. We do a lot of storytelling. We believe consumers make emotional decisions before they have that rational choice. There are a lot of places to go for glasses. That's a rational choice. The emotional decision comes in terms of who you trust. And that's really where we have spent a significant amount of our time and energy in creating an emotional trust bank with our neighbors. So that when that epiphany moment comes, either through us stimulating or through them recognizing, like, geez, I need to get my eyes checked, that they remember what we stand for as a brand and how we connect with them. And it makes the decision, the choice to come to us pretty easy.
Is it a struggle though, back to your comment about, some people feeling like, at a vision center, they're not going to get the same care. How do you get somebody over that gap, somebody that, change their mindset from using their local doctor to going to, a Pearl Center?
So some of them you're not going to, but really we do it through showing, not telling. The most powerful marketing tool on the planet has always been word of mouth, has
Mm.
always been referral. And so by us really focusing on delivering an amazing experience, and we have a best in class operations team that really has done a great job in creating the neighborhood eye care experience. If we deliver an amazing experience, you're going to tell people about it. And that's really how we start to create perceptual runway, or I should say climb move forward on the perceptual runway and begin to get people to start thinking about us not as a faceless chain, but as an authentic brand started by a doctor, owned locally, that really cares about me as a person. And when I look at the 8 years that I've been with the company, the trajectory of the business really demonstrates the fact that we have started to change hearts and minds and win that neighborhood battle.
And when you, for those of the people who have listened to some of the other shows that I've done, I like to talk about the A word, attribution. So you've got a whole litany of marketing tactics that you're using. You're spending a whole bunch of dollars. How are you measuring, or how are you getting some confidence and comfort in the places that you're spending the dollars are really, in fact, working for you?
We're looking at things like exam growth. We're looking at comp customer count. We're also looking at our reputation scores, both our NPS as well as our reputation.com score. When the Women's Choice Awards honored us as the best brand for women in 2019 and again in 2020, that's proof that we're making a difference with consumers that we're focusing on. For us as a franchise business, if you are not filling the book and it's not resulting in comp sales, you're going to hear about it. Franchisees are not shy about letting you know when you're not doing a good job. We have an incredibly vocal group of owners, but those owners are also super passionate about what they do, which has allowed us to really move and move quite quickly. 8 years ago, we were thought of as the buy one, get one free brand. Today, we sit atop the hill as the best doctor quality brand in optical retail. And the reason why we do that is because we have an incredible ownership structure and, you know, amazing frontline associates that recognize that the key to winning a consumer, both long and short term, is earning their trust. And that's really what our marketing does, is help to earn that trust by setting a perceptual roadmap of how we want people to come into our eye care centers. And do we deliver on it every time? Most times, yes. The times that we don't, we learn and we improve.
As a franchisee, how much control do I have at the local level in how I advertise in my community?
Not much. You're paying a royalty to us to be your marketing team, to be your marketing experts. Everybody's got a nephew, uncle, cousin, brother who works at an ad agency, and we take a fair amount of that into our thinking when we position ideas and present marketing plans at the local level. But the things that we remind our owners about is that you're paying us to be your marketing team. Let our team of experts guide you on those decisions. And I think overall we do a pretty good job.
Thank you. We're getting down to the end of our show here. And Doug, we do a 2-minute drill here, kind of keeping with the theme of the marketing playbook. And despite the fact that you said you were a Yankee fan, you did say you were a Giants fan, right? Giants football?
Correct.
All
Correct.
right, so
Correct.
well, that's at least that's you got one right there from my perspective. So I've got a couple of questions, or actually seven, that we ask each of the guests. Can I fire them at you all
Go
quick
for it.
and quick and dirty? Okay, a brand that you admire or that inspires you.
Adidas.
The favorite app on your telephone.
Team Snap.
Team Snap. Okay. Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from.
Coach.
Something that you're not good at, but that you wish that you were.
Spelling.
You got spell check, so you're in business. Charitable organization that you're passionate about.
Helpusadopt.org.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
The ability to fly.
Okay, we hear a lot about people wanting to fly. I guess those are the folks that are stuck in traffic a lot.
The frequent flyer memberships are not what they used to be.
This is true. Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
Wow, you stumped me. Probably my tennis racket.
Okay, that's a good one. All right. Well, look, thank you very much. If people want to reach out to you, Doug, where can they find you on social media?
Sure. So you can obviously reach me through LinkedIn or on Twitter at Doug Zarkin. I hope this was entertaining, maybe a little bit inspiring.
I think you put out a couple of really good pieces of information for the listener, and frankly, it was nice to chat with you again. So, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to Doug Zarkin for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, in order to effectively lead, you have to effectively listen. Number 2, data doesn't make decisions, people make decisions using data. And data is also only as good as the questions that you ask of your customers. And number 3, Doug started on the agency side of marketing and advertising. It was a great way to learn the basic blocking and tackling of the industry and a way to prepare for making the move to the brand side. You can make a change from one side or another during your career and leverage what you have learned to make your new role even better. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at DetailsInteract and learn more at detailsinteractive.com. Until next time, the devil is in the details.